Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're tackling a massive, universal mystery, growing up. I mean, we've all done it, right? But can any of us pinpoint the exact moment it actually happened? We're going to explore Markus Natten's brilliant poem, Childhood, to try and understand this whole phenomenon. It's a truly fantastic piece of literature that breaks down the psychological milestones of losing our innocence. So let's use it as our analytical map.
We're going to act as literary detectives today. We'll start with the ultimate question, trace three distinct milestones of growing up, rationalism, hypocrisy, and individuality, and finally, try to figure out where childhood actually goes.
All right, Section 1, the ultimate question. At what exact moment do we lose our childhood? If you dive right into the poem itself, you'll notice how it opens. The narrator is actively searching for a precise timeline. They're almost obsessively asking, right at the start of the stanzas, when did my childhood go? This isn't just some vague feeling for the poet, It's an active analytical search for a specific trigger point. He really wants to know the exact day the magic faded. And to figure that out, he starts testing out a few different theories. Which brings us to Section 2, Milestone 1, Rationalism, the dawn of logic and geography. Moving to our first milestone, the text gives us a super specific age and a geographical realization as our very first clue. The poet asks if the loss happened the day he ceased to be 11, so the day he turned 12. But honestly, it's what happens at this age that's so absolutely crucial. He asks if it was the time he realized that hell and heaven could not be found in geography. I mean, think about that for a second. This is the exact moment logical thinking overwrites magical belief. Before this, heaven and hell were literal, real places to him, maybe just past the edges of a world map. But then education and logic step in, and suddenly, the physical world has boundaries. Boundaries that definitely don't include fairy tales.
Our study notes classify this specific milestone as rationalism. It's basically the point where a child develops an analytical mind and realizes, wait a minute, abstract concepts actually can't be found in a geography book. It's a loss of innocence, for sure, but it's also the painful, totally necessary gain of objective truth. The world essentially shrinks down to only what can be proven.
Now for Section 3, Milestone 2, Hypocrisy, the disillusionment of the adult world.
But, rationalism isn't the only marker of growing up. The second major milestone shifts our focus completely outward, towards observing the deep flaws of the adults around us. In the second stanza, the narrator turns his critical eye away from those geography books and straight towards the grown-ups, the people who were supposed to be his infallible role models. He asks, was it the time I realized that adults were not all they seemed to be? This is a massive paradigm shift. As kids, we literally think adults have it all figured out, right? Realizing they're flawed and sometimes kind of fake completely shatters that safe, predictable worldview.
The analytical framework we're using labels this jarring realization as hypocrisy. It's a heavy word, yeah, but it perfectly captures the essence of this second milestone. Growing up really means developing the social awareness to finally see that glaring gap between what people say and what people actually do.
The text creates this absolutely powerful juxtaposition here. It contrasts what adults preach, how they talk and preach of love, with the harsh reality that they actually don't act so lovingly. It highlights that sudden, super sharp disillusionment of growing up. The child realizes that the rules adults force upon children are rules the adults themselves just don't follow. It's a profound loss of trust, and arguably a huge step right out of childhood.
Moving on to Section 4, Milestone 3, Individuality, the birth of an independent mind.
The final psychological step in this whole process of growing up shifts inward once again, straight back into the narrator's own mind. If we map out this journey, we see a really clear chronological path. We go from the dawn of logical reasoning at age 11 to spotting adult hypocrisy, and finally developing an independent mind and owning our very own thoughts.
The third stanza gives us this ultimate internal clue. The poet writes, was it when I found my mind was really mine to use whichever way I choose, producing thoughts that were not those of other people? Wow. This is the realization of mental autonomy. It's an incredibly empowering moment, but let's be honest, it's also a pretty isolating one. You're no longer just a vessel for the ideas your parents or teachers poured into you. You are your own entirely separate entity.
Our study material defines this crucial point as individuality. It's that precise moment you stop merely echoing the adults around you and start thinking completely for yourself. You finally realize your thoughts are, as the poem says, my own and mine alone. And while this is basically the ultimate marker of becoming an adult, it also signals the absolute end of the dependent, completely trusting nature of childhood.
Okay, section 5. Where did it go? The shift from when to where.
After exhaustively investigating when childhood ends across those 3 complex mental milestones, the poem's final stanza shifts completely. It asks a brand new question. Where did it actually retreat to? Our source material challenges us here to reflect deeply on the poet's ultimate feelings toward this lost childhood. We've nailed down the thematic comprehension, right? But now we really need to look at the poetic sensibility. How on earth does the poet reconcile this loss after going through all that rationalism, hypocrisy, and newfound individuality?
Well, the answer is beautifully simple, yet so deeply profound. The narrator concludes with this slightly melancholic realization. He stops trying to map it out logically and simply says, "It went to some forgotten place that's hidden in an infant's face. That's all I know." He realizes that pure childhood innocence isn't actually destroyed, it just migrates. It only survives in the unthinking, pure, trusting face of a baby. It's a state of being before logic, before spotting hypocrisy, and way before the heavy burden of individuality sets in.
So, as we wrap up this explainer on Markus Natten's masterful take on growing up, I want to leave you with a final question to really ponder. Which do you think are the most poetic lines in this piece, and why? Is it the cold realization of logic? The biting critique of adults? The triumphant claim of one's own mind? Or maybe that final, soft image of an infant's face? Take a moment to think about your own milestones and consider where your childhood went. Thank you so much for joining me, and keep questioning the world around you.